Close your eyes and picture this. You're sitting by a fire. Someone's wrapped dough around a stick and is holding it over the glowing coals. Slowly, it browns, giving off that unmistakable smell of fresh bread. That's Bannock, simple, quick, and deeply Canadian, but it's more than bread. For generations, it's been survival food, community food, and celebration food. And here's the thing, that story is still being told today, not only around campfires, but in some of Canada's most exciting kitchens. Indigenous chefs are blending ancient traditions with modern creativity, and the results are unforgettable. So let's take a tour, coast to coast, to taste Canada's roots one restaurant at a time. Let's start on the West Coast. In Vancouver, you'll find Salmon in Bannock, the city's only Indigenous-owned restaurant. It's run by Inez Cook, a proud member of the Nuxalk Nation. Her story is remarkable. She's a survivor of the 60s scoop, taken from her family as a child. Through food, she found her way back to her culture. At Salmon in Bannock, you can sit down to wild sockeye salmon, elk stew, or bison pot roast, each plate carrying both flavor and identity. Head east to Owen Sound, Ontario, and you'll discover something completely different. Nagan, led by chef Zach Kishig, offers just 17 seats and a multi-course tasting menu. Kishig blends Ojibwa traditions with fine dining techniques, foraging in nearby forests for ingredients like wild leeks and birch syrup. His dishes aren't just meals, they're little works of art that tell the story of the land. And right here in Winnipeg, we're lucky to have two gems. Feast Café Bistro, created by Chef Krista Bruno Genther of the Peggy's First Nation, is a cozy spot where Bannock pizzas and bison burgers are the stars. Her mission has always been to feed both the spirit and the body. And when you walk into Feast, you can feel that warmth. A few minutes away is Manuman Restaurant inside the Wyndham Garden Hotel. It's led by Chef Jennifer Ballantyne from the Opaskwayak Cree Nation. Her menu celebrates prairie favorites, pickerel from Manitoba lakes, hearty bison chili, and wild rice dishes that honor their namesake. It's the kind of place where tradition meets everyday comfort. And in Edmonton, the Indigenous food scene is just as vibrant. TP Treats, run by Chef Curtis Cardinal of the Whitefish Lake First Nation, is playful and approachable. Bannock burgers, Bannock tacos, Bannock fries. He puts a modern spin on tradition, serving Indigenous food in a way that's welcoming for everyone. And then there's Home Fire Grill, long known for its Indigenous-inspired menu. Think fire-roasted bison ribs, warm Bannock with honey butter, hearty meals that nod to tradition while fitting comfortably into a casual dining setting. Each of these restaurants tells a different story, but they share a common thread. They're more than places to eat. They're places to connect, to the land, to tradition, and to the people keeping these flavors alive. And when you step back, you notice that many of these chefs are drawing from the same ingredients. Staples that have been around for centuries, carrying with them not just flavor, but meaning. To really understand Indigenous cuisine, you need to look at the foods themselves, the ones that show up again and again from Vancouver to Winnipeg to Edmonton. Take Bannock, for example. You'll find it in every restaurant we've talked about, but it never looks the same twice. Sometimes it's fried golden and served with butter, sometimes it's baked into a pizza crust, and sometimes it's wrapped around a stick and roasted over the fire. No matter how it's made, Bannock is always more than bread, it's community. Then there's bison, once the lifeblood of the prairies, nearly hunted to extinction, now making its way back. When you taste bison chili or ribs, you're not just enjoying a meal, you're tasting resilience, a reminder of what was lost and what is returned. Wild rice, or manuman, is another pillar. It grows in shallow lakes, harvested by hand from canoes, gently knocked into the boat with cedar sticks. To the Anishinaabe, it's sacred, a gift from the Creator. Cooked with berries or nuts, it becomes a dish that's earthy and rich, and it carries a story far beyond the plate. And of course, the waters give us Arctic char and salmon, northern delicacies that connect communities to rivers and oceans. On the prairies, foraged berries and spring maple syrup bring sweetness that has always been tied to the seasons. When you see these ingredients come together on menus and recipes and stories, you start to realize that Indigenous food is more than the sum of its parts. It's a way of remembering the land and the people who've always known how to live with it. Of course, not everyone can hop on a plane to Vancouver or Winnipeg tomorrow. But that doesn't mean you can't bring a little taste of Indigenous Canada into your own kitchen. Some of the most important dishes are simple, nourishing, and easy to make at home. Take Bannock, for example. It's just flour, baking powder, a pinch of salt, and a bit of fat. Butter or lard works perfectly. Add enough milk or water to pull it into a soft dough, then either bake it golden in the oven or fry it in a skillet with a splash of oil. If you're around a fire, you can even wrap strips of dough around a stick and cook it over the flames. However you make it, serve it warm with butter or jam, and you've got bread that connects you straight back to the campfires of history. Then there's bison stew, about as prairie as it gets. Start by browning cubes of bison in a heavy pot, then toss in onions, carrots, celery, and potatoes. Cover it all with stock. Add a couple of bay leaves and some garlic, maybe even a splash of red wine if you've got it handy. Let it simmer low and slow until the meat is tender and the broth is rich and earthy. It's the kind of stew that fills the whole house with the smell of comfort, and it practically demands a piece of bannock on the side to mop up the juices. For something lighter but just as meaningful, try wild rice pilaf. Wild rice, or manuman, is nutty, chewy, and unlike any other grain. Cook it gently in stock until it's tender, then stir it together with sautéed onion, carrot, and celery. Add in some dried cranberries for sweetness and a handful of toasted nuts for crunch. The result is earthy, colorful, and deeply satisfying. Pair it with game, fish, or just eat it on its own. Either way, you'll understand why wild rice is considered sacred. And finally, maple-glazed Arctic char, a dish that feels both elegant and deeply Canadian. Brush a fillet of char with a mix of maple syrup, soy sauce, mustard, and garlic, then bake it until the fish flakes easily. The maple glaze caramelizes just enough to give it a golden shine, while a squeeze of lemon brightens the whole plate. Pair it with that wild rice pilaf, and you've got a dinner that feels like Canada on a plate. Northern waters meeting maple forests. These recipes aren't complicated, but they're powerful. Each one is an invitation to slow down, gather people around the table, and connect to something bigger than the meal itself. And if you'd like the full written recipes with exact measurements, I've put them all in today's article on discovercanadainstyle.com. What strikes me most about Indigenous food is how it bridges worlds. It's everyday and extraordinary all at once. It can be as simple as bannock fried in a pan, or as refined as venison tartare on a tasting menu. But either way, it carries stories of survival, resilience, and belonging. When you sit down at a place like Salmon and Bannock in Vancouver, or at Feast Café Bistro here in Winnipeg, you're not just ordering dinner. You're supporting chefs and communities who are keeping traditions alive while sharing them with the rest of us. You're tasting food that is deeply tied to the land, food that has been here long before Canada was Canada. And when you bring those dishes into your own kitchen, bannock on a skillet, bison simmering on the stove, wild rice studded with berries, or a fillet of maple-glazed Arctic char, you're taking part in a tradition that stretches back for generations. It's food as memory, food as identity, and food as connection. So the next time you travel across Canada, I invite you to look past the guidebook staples. Seek out Indigenous-owned restaurants, order the bison, taste the bannock, and see what stories unfold. Chances are the meals you remember most won't be the fanciest or the most photographed. They'll be the ones that left you feeling connected. Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to subscribe to discovercanadainstyle.com. Together, we'll continue to explore the flavors, places, and people that make this country unforgettable. And who knows, maybe your next Canadian memory will begin not with a postcard, but with a plate.